Previously on Stay in Your Lane.
Yeah, so the freight recession, the bloodbath, whatever you want to call it. So I like to think of it as the market, as far as I've looked at it, I've been
Resetting.
doing it for about 25, 30 years. It's either inflating or deflating. We're going to kind of claw around here in equilibrium, a little more capacity coming out of the market. I don't see demand suddenly peaking anytime soon. Who knows what tariffs are going to be? There's so much uncertainty. I think we're going to be hovering at this rate where spot and contract bounce up and down a little bit. Yeah, yeah. I was just talking with my colleague Dean Croak about that, and he talked about the Canada border.
I met
The
Dean.
January, February were some of the biggest steel imports because they're getting it in before the tariffs, and so it was the best months ever. And now it's just cannibalizing demand. But
Right.
yeah, we're seeing a lot of that, and we'll see how long it goes. The tariffs, though, it's so you don't know if it's what's going to turn on or off. So one of the reasons why people do a tariff, I don't always agree with it, is that it might move manufacturing domestic. My question is, if you've got why would you move a production line domestic if it's resting? The economics are only resting on a whimsical tariff decision that could be reversed next month, certainly in 3 years. I don't know, Joe. You were in manufacturing. What would you make
Again,
a decision for that?
you're absolutely right. I mean, tariffs have three purposes, right? You want to try to move production back. You're retaliating against something that's been put on you, or you're trying to You're trying to raise money. So one of those three things is why you do tariffs. And I think Mr. Trump is looking at all three of them. He wants to bring manufacturing back. He wants to retaliate, and he loves to raise revenue. So
Okay, I'm going to jump in here.
Okay.
I have two economists on our show. Everybody knows Bob Costello. He's going to give us the trucking industry, more updates, and et cetera. And somebody I absolutely am terribly fond of and have a huge amount of respect for, Dan North. Dan North says it like this: economic changes in the economy in the United States are only done by two different things: fiscal policy or consumer confidence. That's it. So, any change in either is going to take 3 to 5 quarters before we realize or see the impact of it. So, what's happening now? Maybe change us in third and fourth quarter, right? We're going to see the impact of it at the end of the year, give or take a quarter, to the first of next year or second quarter of next year. Anywhere in there, we're going to see the result of what decisions are changed, economic policies are changed now, or is it going to create, or those changes are going to create consumer confidence in any level? If we see consumer confidence come in, that can make a change too. But that normally is the reaction that comes from it, and so the policy is a 3 to 5 quarter wait. So this year, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I am optimistic, but cautious. From when you asked me what am I seeing, I think this is going to end up being our transition year, and we're going to go out in a much more positive tone than maybe we started. Somewhere throughout the year, hopefully we don't have crazy weather events and things like that to impact all of us in the industry in a negative manner for a short period of time either way, so that we can gain some stability and try and understand where we are.
So you're saying 2025 is like the Patriots? It's a building year?
We're rebuilding this year. Yes,
We're
it's a rebuilding team.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
it's funny, consumer sentiment, consumer, confidence, all that stuff to me is a perfect predictor of the previous 12 months. It's not a good predictor going forward. We are people. I've looked at some of this before. In my opinion, so the question is, I agree with what you were saying about fiscal policy and all that. The question is, what's going to cause rates to increase? Let's look at it that way. Besides oil, if oil goes up, yeah, rates increase, but that really doesn't benefit anyone.
Yeah, that's an accessorial, right?
Yeah. So, but well, it helps intermodal. So there's more of a modal shift and all that stuff. But besides that, so it's either going to be demand increases, whether it's housing starts, which I don't see right now. If they put a tariff on lumber, most of it comes from Canada, not all of it, but a lot of it. Is it going to come from consumers suddenly buying more stuff? I don't see that. Tariffs will increase the cost of things. The administration's even saying there will be some pain, so that'll probably dampen demand. So I don't see any signals of like what happened during the pandemic when demand just shot through the roof.
Oh no, I don't think we're seeing
Although our
anything
history,
like that.
our thinking is a little biased because remember the first, March, April, May, truckers were protesting in front of the Capitol.
Yeah,
Remember?
because rates were
Then the
so
demand
low.
hit.
Then the need. Yeah, then they were heroes for a couple
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
and I had that discussion. I agree with you that I don't see a huge trigger from a housing perspective. From what I saw or heard interest rates wise, the Fed maybe shouldn't have lowered rates a half a basis point last fall. That's what
I
I saw in an
That's
economic write up.
beyond my area of expertise how that all works. I thought we'd
And
see more, to be
yep,
honest. But
yep, and
I was also surprised it didn't show up any change really in like mortgage rates.
no,
They'd already kind of assumed that, so it's nothing is pushing new housing starts that I'm seeing.
no, and I think we have. I would say in a lot of places there's no inventory still in the real estate market from a housing perspective, but I don't think people are interested in going out and starting at a 7 or 8% loan after how many years since 2010 of more than reasonable rates. I mean, my first home was a 7% interest rate, and I got I thought I got a deal.
Yeah, sure.
How about you? What
It's
was
all
your first
relative.
home? What was your first home, Chris? What was your interest rate?
Oh gosh, it was late. Was it 96, 95? I don't remember what the interest rate was. But I remember my first car, I want to say it had double digit. It was like 15 per 12% or something. This was in the
80s?
80s, early
Yeah.
80s, mid 80s. It was crazy back then. So yeah, but having 1%, 2% mortgage rates, that's free money. That couldn't last. That can only last so long.
No, but how many people are in homes that have rates they'll never see again in their lifetime?
Right. And that's the idea. And they're not selling
Right.
because they're not going to move to something because they're going to new mortgage rate
Yeah, their
is going to
mortgage
be.
is going to take away more than what they could gain in home value.
Yeah, but the mortgage rate is what the mortgage rate is. So I think if people have to move, they have to move. I'm curious if the LA fires are going to trigger anything, or is it on the scale? Is that not a big part of the market? Will that increase some home construction in that area? I have no idea.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to end up being insurance.
Yeah, but the question is, will they rebuild, or will
There you
people
go.
just say, "I'm done
In Leaf,
living in a fire trap"?
California,
Yeah,
we've seen a lot of that,
yeah, yeah,
but they're going to have to move somewhere.
yeah.
So,
Everyone's moving to Texas.
well, and I think Florida has seen some people move back out of Florida
Hmm.
in the past 6 months, 12
Yeah.
months. So, needless to say, what your prediction is that there's no real triggers at this point for the year
The
to.
only triggers I see that could happen are negative triggers that will cause rates to drop, that cause carriers to default because they've been hanging on by their teeth for a while, and I know that they've been shedding. The large trucking have been shedding assets, but I think that's slowing down. So I think everyone's kind of tiptoeing around what's going to happen for us going up. But some events could trigger it just the opposite. Capacity gets really tight, demand plummets. We'll see if that happens. If a economic recession happens, then demand, who knows what's going to happen. I don't see anything that's going to suddenly cause the market to tighten, to be honest.
I don't think it's going to be. To your point, I'm in agreement and say I don't think we're going to see a big increase in any in demand, and we're therefore not going to see a large increase in rates. Costs of operating have gone up. Insurance rates
Sure.
across the board are up
Absolutely.
12.5%. Then we've got the fraud to deal with that the industry is still learning how to cope with and manage, and we're kind of behind it, I think, as an industry. But I don't think we're going to see a COVID again, probably not in any of our careers or even our lifetime scenario like that. Joe, where are you at?
Well, I just had a couple of questions for Chris. As you talk to shippers, do any of them bring up the fact of the changes in immigration, deportation? Is that going to affect labor supply? You've got some manufacturing they need low cost workers. You've got construction, and even on the trucking side. So, anybody bringing those concerns to you, Chris?
You
Or
know,
raising?
not as much. We have at DAT we have a shipper roundtable once a month, and we have next one in just a couple of days, and that'll be something we'll talk about. In the manufacturing, I haven't had that conversation. I imagine for like food processors, you see a lot of that
Yeah.
agriculture.
Right.
I'm sure
Right.
they're taking a hit for that. But to be honest, you know, they shouldn't be hiring illegal immigrants. You should be paying. I mean, it's kind of say you can't, we should let illegal immigration in because it's good for manufacturers. So I, so I haven't had those conversations with shippers, but I'm kind of, we'll see how it settles down. But for trucking, I haven't heard as much of an impact. Have you guys? Do you have a lot of drivers? I would think it'd be harder to have a
You know,
The
CDL.
the only thing I've heard is that there's a little concern from some of the truckers on the southwest border about Mexican truckers that are probably doing a little more than they should be going into the interior
yep.
and pulling loads that they probably by law they shouldn't.
I
Seeing
hear
more-
that is the issue, Joe. You are correct from that perspective. But I saw a statistic, and you guys can confirm or tell me I'm crazy, but majority of the agricultural workers are either here on work visa legally, and that they won't see an impact of it. So
You don't think so? Yeah, I
no,
agree.
they're saying
But
1
I
to
think
2%.
there's also, unfortunately, along with this, I mean, so if you look at immigration, illegal immigration, it just shot. When Biden came in, he just wanted to be not Trump. And so they opened the borders, and we're still paying the price for that. It's closed down dramatically, but I think it cast a pale on legal immigration too, which is I find depressing. Up at MIT, we have a lot of international students. It's a big world. We have people come in. I'd love to see the H-1B lottery, the cap increase dramatically. I think we should encourage legal immigration. The problem is cracking down on this, there's a little, it bleeds over. It's like an anti-halo effect on legal immigration. And our country, we rely on immigrants. I mean, I'm fourth generation immigrant?
Right.
We're all immigrants of
We're
some
all
degree.
immigrants
And
at
so
some
how
level.
can you be anti-immigration?
No, I think that what was it, previous to 1965 or 66 were considered the golden years of immigration, where people came from other countries, and sometimes the first generation sacrificed so that the future generations would have the opportunity to live the American dream.
There's a great book called Streets of Gold by two academics, but they talk about immigration going back to the 1700s. And you're right, there were two big waves, but they studied the recent wave. And people kind of look at that as, you say the golden age. That's when the good Europeans came and everything. No, they were the Italians and the Irish. I'm Irish.
Right.
We were not thought about as great, good
No,
Europeans, right?
I'm half
We were the
German,
great-
half Irish.
Yeah, so we came in, and so what they found is that even recently we're seeing more immigration from Latin American countries, and they're following the exact same pattern. The first generation, you're exactly right. They're sacrificing. It's the second generation and third generation who become more Americanized.
Correct.
And so I think it's just a great story, and you see it still happening over and over again.
Right, and I think that is damaged by what's happened the past 4 years or so.
Continue watching on the next episode of the Stay in Your Lane podcast.